Hello, my name is Christian, and today I'm going to be going over pretty much a basic overview of how to get started on Tableau. We're going to be developing some different sheets and visualizations and then putting together a dashboard. Something I want to preface this with is we are using Tableau 10.5. The latest version right now is 2018.2. We are using 10.5 though because that's what a lot of our clients use, and so there shouldn't be any major issues. Maybe an icon will look different, potentially the data set will have a little bit of different data, but for the most part everything should look similar. So to begin, this is your home page. You can see here that these are some projects I had been working on before. You can connect to different files or to servers through here. So if I wanted to connect to a Microsoft Excel sheet, I can click on this and I can browse around to different documents in here and so on. I could also connect to a server by clicking this, for example, Microsoft SQL server, and you can just type in your server name, the database, and use whatever authentication you need. But for the purpose of today's video, we are going to be using the sample superstore data. So you can click on that and it'll take you to this screen here. A little bit about the superstore data. Tableau provides a superstore data set that's in every version of Tableau. And it's a great way to get started and to practice building some visualizations. So you can see here on the main part of the screen, you have this entire sheet, which is where all of our data is going to be put into. And then on the left side, you have these different values. These are the columns that were in that table, and they're split into two sections. You have dimensions and you have measures. Pretty much for the difference between these are dimensions cannot be aggregated and measures can be aggregated. To aggregate just means to form or group into a class or a section. And so you can also see that some of these are blue and some of these are green. The blue pretty much means that these values are discrete values or they're distinct values, and the green means that they are continuous. So pretty much what all that in summation is that these blue values, they are distinct values. So if you had a list of cities, they're not going to continue into another. You would have Houston and then Austin and then Dallas. But these measures, for example, sales, it could exist anywhere on a scale from 1 to 10. And so most of the time, your measures will be continuous and your dimensions will be discrete. But there are a few occasions, for example, date would be one where it could be backwards. So now we are going to get started by building a visualization. So to begin, what we're going to do is we're going to drag this region bar right here, and we're going to drag it into the columns section up here. And then we are going to grab the sales and drag it into the rows, and you can see that we have a bar chart. And it's just appeared very quickly. You can also see here that you have the region and the sales in these ovals. We're going to refer to these as pills. And so you can see here also that the sales here have been aggregated to some, and that's because when in the table for Superstore, there's all these different entries and they're separated into different columns. And so for all the sales that correspond to central, they're in this central column. And so they've summed up like that. You can also switch this aggregation into an average right there, and it's changed. You could also do it with a count or a median value, but we're gonna just stick with sum for right now. Also notice that whenever you put your cursor over one of the bars, you get this little descriptor here of some of the data. This is called a tooltip. I won't refer to it much in this video, but there is tons of work you can do with the tooltip. And so now let's get to customizing this bar chart a little bit more. It's a little bit flat just because it's all blue right now. And so one way we can change that is we can drag this region column again into the colors. You can now, in a quicker way, begin to distinguish what this chart is showing. You can see them by region. You could also even drag in, let's say, profit to the size. And now this chart is now beginning to tell two different stories. The first is that the height of the bar shows the sales and the width of the bar is showing the profit. We're going to take out the profit for the purposes of this video though, and we can also put the sales as a label on top so you can see the amount that it is without having to hover over it and looking at that tooltip. Once again, we're going to get rid of this though. So another thing that can be helpful is to be able to sort your charts in an ascending or descending order. The way we do that is we go up to the toolbar up here, and we can use this button here to sort in ascending order, or this one down here to sort in descending. You can also look in the columns row with the region, and you can see the little icon change in the pill depending on how we sort it. You can change the sort within here as well, right there. And so that's a little bit about the toolbar. Another important thing within the toolbar is you can swap the columns and the rows, the values that are in them, which will essentially turn the visualization on its side like that. So that's a really important feature if you just want to be able to show your visualization in a little bit of a different way. Now, if you go all the way to the right of the screen, you can see the Show Me tab. We're going to click on it, and you all of a sudden see all these different visualization options here. Some of them are grayed out, some of them are visible, and the ones that are visible right now are ones that you can switch to right away. So let's switch to this pie chart. It's a little small. We're going to make it fit the full screen by where it says standard. You can click on that, hit entire view, and it's right there. So we got a pie chart splitting the sales into different regions, which is great. However, you have to use the tooltip to see what's going on here. So we're going to bring the labels into this now again, which is great. And you can see here and in the West, they have 725,000 in sales, and it takes up a nice chunk. However, when we're using pie charts, one important thing that we like to know is how does it compare to the rest of the data set? What's the percent of the total value? And a way in which we can do that is through table calculations. So to show you what I mean by that is we're going to go here into the marks card that we were using earlier, and click on this down arrow for the sum of sales, the one that's the label, and you can go to quick table calculations, and you get this list of different ones. You can see that there's a percentile one, a moving average. We're going to use percent of total for right now, and you can now quickly see that this section takes up 31.58% of total sales. And so the West seems to be doing pretty well, and that's a pretty quick way of seeing how it compares to the other regions. And as you can see, when we click on the Show Me, you can just go to some other visualizations pretty quickly. Here's a heat map. This is a tree map right here. But let's say we wanted to get to this line chart right here, this line graph. But we can see that it's grayed out, and in the requirements at the bottom, you see it's saying one date there. So that means we need to have a date value within this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the bar chart, and I want to quickly also point out again how you can see that what we were doing in the bar chart earlier has not stayed. When you switch to different types of charts or different graphs, some of the work that you have put in there, it will go away when you switch to a different chart so that it can meet the requirements of that new chart. But we're wanting to get a line graph right now, and to do that we need to bring in the date. So we're going to go to the dimensions here, and we're going to use this order date. You know that it's a date because of the little calendar icon next to it, and so we're going to drag it into the rows, and you'll see that Tableau automatically notices that we might be trying to have some form of a line chart. It didn't choose the correct one, but we can go to the Show Me, and you get a line chart pretty quickly. And so you can see that each line represents a region. It's the same colors as we had for that pie chart and for the graph, or for the bar chart as well. And you can see that it's separated into each year. Now, when we go to the columns here where it shows the year, we have this little plus sign. When you click on it, you can see that we get more detail. Each one of these little dots is now separated into the quarter for each year. So the first quarter in 2014 for the South had sales of 44,000. Now we can also drill down a little bit further, and now you see it by month of each year, and it has all 48 months across these 4 years. Now that's really helpful to be able to see it by the month, but as you can see, this picture is really cluttered and hard to tell what's going on. But one way in which we could make this easier to follow is we could filter it so you're only seeing 1 year at a time. So to do that, we're going to grab the order date and drag it into the filters bar here. Now you have these different options on how to filter by year or by date. And for right now, we're gonna choose the years option. I invite you to play around with that and see how you can filter in a more specific or different way. But we're gonna choose the years and we're gonna click all right there. So at the moment we're selecting all years, hit OK. Nothing's changed at the moment yet because we selected all of them. But if you right click on the pill in the filter and click show filter, now you have the filter on the right. So all of them are clicked, but when you click this all button, all of it goes away and your screen goes blank. But if you just click the 2014, now you can see the 2014 values by month. It's a whole lot easier to follow what's going on, and it was just a very quick switch. Now you can also click 2015 and you have both at the same time. With this, in the filter section here, you can click this drop down arrow, and this list right here is a list of different filter types that we have. You could use, we're using a multiple value list. You could go to a single value list where it's these radio buttons to choose from. Now, one that I prefer to use is the single value drop down. It's a quick, simple way to switch from option to option, and it doesn't take up a lot of space on your screen. And so that's what we're gonna stick with. Also, as we've seen, you have this legend here, and when you click on one of the values, it highlights whatever region you were clicking on, and it kind of fades everything else out. And so that's a good way when presenting to show what you're trying to focus on. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was the part 1 of the tutorial, and tune in soon for part 2.